Hello, Packer fans, wherever you may be across the world. It's time for another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. We're here to give you all the information you need to know about the NFL, and in particular about your Green Bay Packers. Exciting day today, as I have a couple of things I want to talk about to kind of re reimagine where we are for the Green Bay Packers. There's been a lot of disappointment over the preseason game on Saturday. There's been a lot of frustration about injuries to the roster and how that will impact the start of the season. So I want to take a in-depth look at the development of the players that are on the roster and their likely status for week one, because I think these injury concerns are a little overblown. But before we get to that, give us a like if you enjoy this video, and please give us a subscribe if you have not already done so. We're close to 7,000 subs before the start of the NFL season, and hopefully maybe we could push that up to 8,000 subs before the start of the season. And that's all up to you guys hitting that subscribe button if you have not already done so. Important note about the Packers today. The Packers are traveling to Indianapolis today to have joint practices with the Colts on Thursday before they have a day off, and then they have a preseason game on Friday at Indianapolis. So we don't have any news and notes per se from practice. We do know that Jordan Love did have his thumb ligament surgery yesterday. I am assuming that he's resting at home and not traveling with the team. I don't have any verification on that, and we might not hear about that until we get news from the inter-team practice on Thursday, or perhaps if we see Jordan Love at the game on Saturday. My expectation would be that he is resting in Green Bay so he could get his ligament back to 100% before the start of the season. So, as I said, there's a lot of doom and gloom and frustration right now about the Packers. So I want to take some time to actually look at the positives that we have. I know the preseason performance on Saturday was a disappointment. I know there's a lot of concern in the Packer universe about all the recent injuries, especially at wide receiver. But I think if we could step back from the immediate media reaction to injuries and the reaction to the game on Saturday and look at the development of the team so far in training camp, and also the status of the players for week one as far as we know them, I think we're going to feel a lot better about where the Green Bay Packers are. So what I'm going to do is share my screen here. What I've done is I've developed a pretty comprehensive list of the players that are on the roster, the development compared to last year, their injury status, and what I expect their status will be for week one based on any injuries. That is obviously subject to change, and we might hear the medical staff have a different opinion. These are just my interpretations on when the Green Bay Packers are going to be able to play given their injuries. So that's what we're going to look at today. This is not a fully comprehensive look at the roster, all 92 players. What I'm trying to focus on is the impact players in the first team, second team, and third team that are most likely to impact the Green Bay Packers on week one and their status for week one based on the injury information that I have. So let's go through this really quickly. So I've got the player, I've got the position, I've got the development compared to last year. That's my evaluation based on what I've seen in training camp and in the preseason game. Injury status and their status for week one, because all of these injuries are really not that bad. Jordan Love's thumb ligament surgery is definitely a concern, but in the big scheme of things, our injuries are actually in line with what you would normally see in training camp and the preseason, and there's nothing here that I see that will seriously derail the season or week number 1, which is most important for me. So let's go through some of these players. We're going to talk about their development compared to last year and their status for week 1 and any injuries that they have, okay? So, of course, we're going to start out with Jordan Love here. I would say overall his development over last year has been a positive. Looking at him in training camp, he has a left thumb ligament injury, but he is still expected to start week 1. So his impact of his injury, I believe, is not going to be significant. There might be some rust. There might be some timing issues with receivers. But I think with a week of practice before the start of the season, which he is on track to do, I think he's going to be just fine. Next up, we have Malik Willis. I think his development compared to last year is pretty flat. And that's not a bad thing. When I say a player is flat, that basically means they're performing at about what they performed last year. Malik Willis played exceptionally well last year, so it's not a surprise that his performance in preseason has been about the same. And that's a good thing. He's expected to be the backup for week 1 with no known injuries. Sean Clifford, right now I have him as the number 3 quarterback. I was really a big El Gersma fan at the start of training camp, but I really haven't seen El Gersma really show any significant development, whereas Sean Clifford actually looks a lot better than he looked last year. So if I had to make the roster today, I would make Sean Clifford my quarterback number 3, and I would put him on the practice squad just like he was on last year. But it's good to see that Sean Clifford has shown some significant development, in my opinion, from last year to this year. El Gersma is currently my quarterback 4. I haven't really seen anything that really impressed me, so he's probably going to be on pace for a practice squad or a cut unless he makes some significant advances in the next 2 weeks. Let's go with Josh Jacobs. I think he has flat performance on line of what we saw last year, which is a good thing because he was an elite player last year, and he's all systems go with no injury and expected to start in week 1. Marshawn Lloyd, running back 2, he has a groin injury. He's expected to be good for the regular season. Now, for Marshawn Lloyd, I think the Packers have a really tough choice in week 2, and week 3 of the preseason. Do they get Marshawn Lloyd into game action? If it was me personally, I would put Marshawn Lloyd in for at least a quarter in the second preseason game and the third preseason game to get him some real in-game reps. In addition, since we know that Jordan Love is not going to play in those 2 games, that will give the offense another weapon to be successful on early downs, because I think Marshawn Lloyd brings a lot more to the table than Chris Brooks and Eric Wilson. So if Marshawn Lloyd is in there on Saturday against the Colts, and he is actually running well and getting the Packers in very convertible third downs, that's going to help the whole offense look a lot better. And I think Marshawn Lloyd needs the reps. I think he needs to get hit a few times in an actual NFL game. And I think that Packers offense, quite frankly, needs him as a weapon in this preseason game to get more production out of the offense and get things into a groove. One of the big things that was a problem in the preseason game against the Jets in addition to all of the holding penalties, is the running game was not very efficient with the first team offense. So what I'd like to see is Marshawn Lloyd out there to help the first team offense, or second team offense more likely, with against the Colts, be more efficient, and that will improve their showing in the preseason game. It's not about whether the Packers win or lose this game. It's if they could show significant improvement from the first game, and if they're competitive on all phases of the game. Because we saw the Packers really struggle in all phases of the game except for run defense in the first game against the Jets. Next up, we have Chris Brooks. He has no injury. He's expected to be good for week 1. We have Eric Wilson, RB4. In my opinion right now, he has a knee injury, but he's expected to be good, and he's already back in practice. So what I would like to see in the preseason, I would like to see Marshawn Lloyd get a quarter at running back against the Colts and a quarter against the Seahawks. I would like Chris Brooks to get a quarter and a quarter. And I would like Eric Wilson to get a quarter and a quarter in the next games. And then they can have the other running backs on the roster, which I haven't really filled out here, handle the fourth quarter. So Marshawn Lloyd gets the first quarter in these last 2 preseason games. Chris Brooks gets the second quarter, and Eric Wilson gets the third quarter. And you can mix that up, of course. But what I'd like to see is both running backs, all 3 running backs, to get a couple series where they are the starting running back. I think that would be really good for the offense, and it would be really good for the players as well. Let's look at wide receiver. There's a lot of concern right now around the wide receiver position, but I think we're going to be good by week 1. So let's talk about that. Number 1, in my opinion, Matthew Golden is the number 1 receiver on this roster. I think that's been made very clear in training camp, and unless he takes a step back, I expect him to be the de facto number 1 wide receiver for the Packers. Now, does that mean he's going to get a huge amount of targets versus Dobbs or Reeds? No, I think it's going to be fairly comparable between those 3 players. But I think Matthew Golden has the playmaking ability that the other players at wide receiver just don't have for the Packers. So that's why I'm considering him wide receiver 1. His success in training camp has been exceptional, well above expectations. He has no injuries right now, and he's expected to be good for week 1. Next up, we have Romeo Doubs, wide receiver 2. He did leave practice yesterday after a collision, and we haven't received an update on that. I am expecting Romeo Doubs is okay, and he'll be all systems go on Thursday against the Colts. If that's not the case, then we're going to have to change this prediction. But right now, I expect him to be good for week number 1. We have Jaden Reed, our slot wide receiver. I think with Golden establishing himself as an outside receiver and Dobbs an established outside receiver, it really gets us to the point where we need to lean in to Jaden Reed being the slot wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. He has a sprained foot, and he is more likely than not to start on week 1. He was seen in a walking boot at the preseason game, but he still has 3 weeks to recover from that sprained foot to be available for week 1, and I expect that to happen. We have Donatavian Wicks, wide receiver 4. He's been dealing with a calf strain the last week and a half, but before that, Wicks was looking really good in training camp. He was catching the ball. He was making big plays. So I'm giving him an arrow up for his development. He does have the calf strain, but I expect him to be ready for week number 1. Next, we have Savion Williams. I have him as wide receiver 5. I don't know what to think about Savion. We haven't seen enough of him in training camp and in the preseason to know where Savion is in his development. So I'm giving him a flat development right now. He does have a shoulder injury, but I do expect him to be good for the start of the season. How much Savion Williams will be on the field, that's a question for the coaching staff, but right now I would assume that Savion Williams will be just fine for week 1. We have Malik Heath. He's wide receiver 6. He has no injury. At this point, I'm predicting Malik Heath will be a practice squad player. We have Mecole Hardman. He is a wide receiver, but he's mainly here as a returner. And his development has been negative. His play in the preseason game against the Jets was horrible. Not only did he fumble a punt, but he fielded a punt inside the 5-yard line, which an experienced returner should not be doing. That was a significant issue on his part. That resulted in literally points that the Jets put on the board because of the punt returner position and Mecole Hardman's production. So right now, I don't have Hardman making this team. I think he's going to be a cut or possibly a trade. I just don't see him being a viable option with all the other receivers that we have. And we do have players that are very good returners in the past. Jaden Reed can handle punts. Nixon can return punts and kicks. So there's no reason for us to add Hardman if he's not going to be a significant benefit to the roster. And right now, Hardman, in my opinion, is not a impactful player in the positive. And of course, we have Christian Watson. He's down here at the bottom, not because of his ranking, but because he's not available. His role is to be determined. He's recovering from a ACL injury. Typo there. ACL injury. We're doing things live here. ACL injury. He's on the PUP list. Now, Gutekunst came out yesterday and said that Christian Watson will start out on the PUP list, which means he'll miss the first 4 weeks. The Packers have a bye week, week 5. That means we could have Christian Watson as early as week 6 in this lineup. And I think he would immediately move up to be wide receiver 4 on this roster, the speed receiver on the outside. And I think there's no question that he's going to be an impactful player. When I was at training camp, I saw Christian Watson on many occasions working out on the sidelines, and he looked very comfortable. He looked confident in his abilities, and I think Christian Watson is going to hit the ground running, trying to get a new contract next year, either from the Packers or from someone else. All right, so let's look at the so before we move on, sorry about that. Before we move on, let's circle back to the wide receivers. Everybody's concerned about the wide receiver injuries. I understand their concern. I'm concerned about it as well. But if we take a breath, look at the calendar, look at those injuries, they're all injuries where those wide receivers can be back in the lineup week 1. I'm not worried about Dobbs right now. I'm not worried about Jaden Reed. I'm not worried about Wicks or Williams being out before week 1 right now. The only player that could possibly miss week 1, in my opinion, is Jaden Reed. And I think that we can work around that. If Jaden Reed is out for week 1, I think you could use Matthew Golden in the slot, put Wicks on the outside, and I think Matthew Golden can fill in for Jaden Reed just fine. I think that he would fill in that role very nicely. I'm not saying Matthew Golden is Jaden Reed, but what I'm saying is his traits, his abilities, and skill styles actually fit really well for the slot. He's good at getting separation. He's very good at making open field moves, which is exactly what you want to see from your slot receiver. So I think Matthew Golden can fill in for Jaden Reed in the short term. Now let's look at the offensive line, because the offensive line is actually looking really good. So let's take a look at that. We've got Rasheed Walker. He's locked in at left tackle, in my opinion. His development is on par with last year, which is a good thing because he was a great left tackle last year. He does have a groin injury, but I think if these games were actual games, Rasheed Walker would be in the lineup. So I have no worries about Rasheed Walker being in the starting lineup for week 1. Next up, we have Aaron Banks, left guard. I don't think there's any question that he's going to be our starter at left guard at this point. He does have a back injury right now, but I expect him to be good. Again, Aaron Banks, if these were regular season games, he would be in the lineup. I'm not worried about that at all. Elton Jenkins, center. I am giving him an up arrow because I've heard nothing but good things from practice, and I think his move to center is an overall upgrade for the Green Bay Packers offensive line. So he has a back injury, but I expect he will be good for week 1. So I'm not worried about that at all. Next up, at right guard, we have Sean Ryan. He does not have an injury, and I expect he will be good for week number 1. I'm not worried about that at all. So Sean Ryan, in my opinion, has locked in the right guard position. He's been playing very well in practice. He has an ascending development, in my opinion, and I think he's your starter at right guard for week 1. Next up at right tackle, we have Zach Tom, of course. His development has been flat, and that's not a negative. He's already an all-pro, in my opinion, right tackle. So I'm very comfortable with Zach Tom's development. He has no injuries. He's expected to be good for week 1. Next up, we have Jordan Morgan. Right now, he's in a competition for left tackle. I don't think that's really going to be the case when we get to actual game time. So he's going to be depth at tackle and guard. His development is up right now. I feel like he's played very well in the preseason game, and I expect him to be good for week number 1. Anthony Belton, depth at tackle and guard. His development has been flat. I looked at the tape for the preseason game. I did see some good things, and I saw some bad things. He did really good on the really good blocking on the touchdown run, so that was great to see. But he also was not the best in pass coverage. So Anthony Belton, I'm still waiting to see what happens. I think Anthony Belton is your swing tackle as needed this year and possibly a tackle for the future, but he's expected to be good for week number 1. Jacob Monk, depth at center and guard. His development has been flat compared to last year. I expect him to be good for week 1. Kadeem Telfort, depth at tackle and guard. His development has been a positive. He is expected to be good for week 1. Right? So these injuries are frustrating, but I think at the end of the day, they're going to be just fine for week 1. We have Travis Glover. He's on IR, which is disappointing because he was actually having a really good training camp. He has a shoulder injury. He is out for the season. For defensive line, let's talk about defensive line, because I think defensive line is going to be perhaps the key to week one. There is a possibility with these injuries that the offense might be a little sluggish week one, but I think the defense is going to raise the level of their play for week one, and I think that's going to be a real surprise for the Detroit Lions, and I expect that to be a big part of our success in our victory week one. I'm calling it right now. LVN, edge rusher, his development has been off the charts. That's why he gets 3 arrows. I'm an LVN truther. I've seen nothing in training camp to tell me that LVN is not going to make a huge, huge upgrade this year. So I'm very excited about what LVN can do as a starter. He has no injuries. He will be fine for the start of the season. Rashawn Gary, edge. His development is up. And what I mean by that is everything I've heard from training camp and preseason is Rashawn Gary is locked in and he understands his role in the defense and he is ready to reestablish himself as an elite end in the NFL. And I think that is something that's definitely going to happen, so I'm giving him an upgrade with his development. Kenny Clark, nose tackle. He is healthy this year. Last year he had a toe injury that really limited his effectiveness at pushing the pocket. That is better. He seems like he's all systems go this year, so I'm giving him an up for his development, and I expect him to be good for week one. And we have Devontae Wyatt. He is our 3rd technique in the interior defensive line, the 3 technique. His development has been about the same as last year. I haven't heard good things, and I haven't heard bad things about his development. So I'm considering him equal. He's expected to be a starter this year, and he will be good for week one. We have Brandon Sorrell. He's depth at edge. His development has been good. He's been considered by many to be one of the best steals of this draft. I've seen that on multiple articles. He played very well in the preseason game, and he's expected to be ready for the start of the season. We have Carl Brooks, depth at edge. His development has been flat. Expect him to be good for week one. Colby Wooden, depth at defensive end and defensive line. He can play both positions. His development has been very good. He looked really good in the last preseason game. He's going to be good for week one. We have Cox. He's solid depth. He's shown flashes in the preseason. No injuries. Aaron Mosby, depth with a flat development so far. He's expected to be good for week one. We have Brinson and Stackhouse, our depth in the defensive line, in the interior. Both of them have had great production in practice. They're both healthy and ready for the season so far. So the defensive line is really in a good place for the start of the season. And I hope they can show enough flashes in the preseason to get people comfortable with what's coming. Although there is a small part of me that would like the defensive line to be a big surprise week one and shock the world. That would be amazing. All right, let's go to linebacker now. We don't have too much to talk about with linebacker, so I'm going to try to expedite this. We've got Cooper locked in, Walker locked in as starters. They're healthy for the season. Quay Walker has an ankle injury that he's recovering from, but he's in practice, and right now I expect him to be good as a starting linebacker for week one. Next up, it's interesting. We have Isaiah McDuffie and we have Isaiah Simmons, both in competition to be that number 3 linebacker on early downs. Right now, I give the edge to McDuffie because he's a known quantity and he has experience in this defense. But if Simmons flashes enough in the rest of the preseason to show that he's too good to keep out of the starting lineup, it would not surprise me if Simmons ends up being a surprise starter week number 1 or maybe week number 2 or 3. I think Isaiah Simmons has the physical traits of a first-round pick that really make him hard to keep off the field. So we're going to have to see what happens. Imagine if Simmons becomes a starting linebacker, what a feather in the cap that will be for Gutekunst. We also have Colin Oliver. He's depth at linebacker, but he has not been able to see the field due to a hamstring injury. My expectations for Colin Oliver, since he was a draft pick, is he ends up on the physically unable to perform list, and we might not see Colin Oliver till next year. So we'll have to see what happens there. Tyron Hopper, depth at linebacker. He's had a very positive camp from everything I've heard. He's expected to be good for the start of the season. We have Christian Welch, depth at linebacker. He's been very good so far in training camp, but there might not be a spot for him on the active roster. He might end up being a practice squad player, but the risk there is that he gets picked up by another team off waivers if they move him to the practice squad. So we're going to have to see what happens there. And now we're going to get to our secondary. I know this is a long exercise, but I think there's a lot to be seen from this as far as the development of the players and to realistically look at the injuries and how they will impact week number 1. So next up we have Keyshawn Nixon, cornerback 1. His development has been a positive. He's been a team leader. He's shown great coverage in practice against the Packers wide receivers. And he's, one of the things I love about Keyshawn Nixon is when I was there for training camp, every day I was at practice, Keyshawn Nixon was one of the first players on the field. He was showing his leadership, which I think is a intangible for Keyshawn Nixon that we're going to see a lot of this year. I expect him to be good for the start of week 1. We have Nate Hobbs, cornerback 2. His development was on par with what we saw with the Raiders last year. In my opinion, he's a significant upgrade over our cornerback 2 last year. So overall, it's a positive he's on the team, but his development is about the same as I expected it to be. He has a knee injury, but he's expected to be good for the start of the season. We have Corey Valentine, cornerback 3. His development has been through the roof in training camp. He is making plays. He's covering wide receivers for the Packers on a consistent basis. He's making plays. He knows his assignments. Corey Valentine might be one of the most improved players on this roster. He's expected to be good. If Nate Hobbs is not back week 1, let's say for an example, I think Corey Valentine can go in, be cornerback 2. They can use Bullard in the slot, and they will be just fine in the secondary if the defensive line does their part and puts pressure on the quarterback. Next up, we have Corey Valentine. He is a new addition to the roster, but an old addition to the roster. He was on the team last year. He knows the defense. He is a proven commodity, and that's why I'm putting him at cornerback 4 because of his experience with the roster and the team. I think the team has a lot of confidence in Valentine, and that makes him cornerback 4 in my opinion. His development has been flat. He will be ready for the start of week 1. We have Melton, Bo Melton, who is a darling of training camp, moved from wide receiver to cornerback, and he is holding his own. His development has been through the roof, going from one position to another, and he is playing very good corner for a depth player. I think he's going to be fine for the start of the season. We have Kamal Haddon. I have him at cornerback 6. He does have an injury that's kept him from practicing consistently. I think it might be a calf injury or a knee injury. His status is to be determined for week 1, and I haven't seen enough from him to really talk about his development. Kalen King, cornerback 7. His development has been positive. I've heard good things about him in training camp, so I'm putting him with an up arrow. He has no injuries. He's expected to be good for the start of the season. Now, I don't think they're going to keep all these corners. So does Kamal Haddon or Kalen King end up on the practice squad? We're going to have to see what happens there. It's too early to tell for those players. So cornerback 4 through 7 is very fluid for me. Those players could go up and down depending on how they do in preseason and shared practices throughout the next couple weeks. Let's look at safety. Safety is probably the easiest position for us to look at. So we're going to go through this very quickly. Xavier McKinney, starter. He's looked even better than last year, in my opinion, in training camp. He's expected to be good for the start of the season. I'm not anticipating any problems with his availability. Williams, our other starter, his development has been flat. He's been in a competition with Bullard, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be our starting safety. He's expected to be good for the start of the season. We have Javon Bullard. He is either going to be depth at safety or possibly kick into the nickel, depending how things work out through the rest of training camp, plus the availability of the other players that we've talked about. He's expected to be good for the start of the season. We have Oladapo. He is depth. His development has been flat. He's expected to be fine. We have Zane Anderson. He is a depth player right now. His development has been flat, in my opinion. He has a knee injury, and we don't have an update on his status. So I can't tell you 100% if Zane Anderson will be available for week number 1. Then we have Omar Brown, depth. His development has definitely been an up. He leads the team in interceptions through training camp so far. You could debate the quality of those interceptions, but at the end of the day, he's played very well for a depth player at safety. He's expected to be good for the start of the season. Then we have special teams, of course. McManus has only been better in preseason, in my opinion. In training camp, he's been hitting the ball well. He feels very confident. He feels like he's locked in as an elite kicker. In my opinion, he's expected to be good for the season. And then we have Waylon as our punter. His development has been lateral. I haven't really heard anything good or bad. There's been practices where I've heard that he's kicked well, and there's been practices where I've heard that he's not kicked well. So I'm leaving him flat. He will be good. So thank you for bearing with me through this exercise. I know this is a longer video for me, but the key for me is this roster is developing very well. Most of the players are either flat for development or they're an up arrow for development. And these injuries, while they're concerning right now because the players aren't on the practice field, I expect the majority of these players to be ready for week 1 where it really matters. So that's this edition of the Pack Attack Cast. If you enjoyed this, please give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please give us a subscription so you have us in your feed each and every day while we keep you informed on your Green Bay Packers. As always, go Pack Go. We'll have more commentary tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, we should have news and notes from the joint practice with the Colts. The joint practices, in my opinion, are more important than the preseason games. So I'm really eager to see what the feedback is from those inter-team practices with the Colts. Does LVN have success in practice against the Colts? Is the offensive line holding up strong against the Colts defensive line? Are our wide receivers, even though they're lower on the depth chart, able to make plays against the Indy secondary, which is not the best secondary in my opinion? Can the running backs be effective in limited reps against the Indy's defensive line? These are all things that I want to see, and we'll give you that information tomorrow afternoon. As always, go Pack Go, and we will see you tomorrow.